Here are 15 of the best Ask Reddit stories for today. I hope you enjoy and remember to subscribe. It really helps us out. We post new videos every day.
I stole money from a student trip fund at a church. When I was 17, I stole $600 from a church group fund for kids to go on a trip. It was an opportunistic crime. I may have passed a center and walked by a door with nobody around, and it may have been the only few moments nobody was around that area all day. I didn't know what is for or who it belonged to before I stole it, so I was okay with it for a long time. Then I realized that, had I known all of this before stealing the money, and my chances of getting caught were still 0 to very little, I would have done it the same all over again. What is the best response to why are you still single? Personal choice. Are you interested? I am single by choice. Their choice, but still. I have the social skills of a spoon. Because my goal isn't to be in a relationship, it's to be in the right relationship. Who the fuck are you? Get the hell out of my house. Are you blind? Look at me. Your mom says she wants no strings attached.
People who go into the bathroom to freshen up before sex. What are you guys actually doing in there? Calling my mom to give her the good news. Washing my hands and checking my nails. Sink washing the junk. I put on my robe and wizard hat. Usually I am just putting combat boots on for better traction. Taking a leak. I prefer not to bone with a full bladder, personally. Making sure I've taken care of going to the bathroom and a quick wet washcloth to the flaps and crack. Fighting for my fucking life on the toilet. They're logging into r/AskReddit. People who've had sex, what the frick do I do now? Making sure the pits, tits, and slits are good to go. I'm tucking my dick back and looking at myself in the mirror. I'd fuck me. Washing the cooter and the surrounding areas. Rummaging through your medicine cabinet. Peeing, checking I don't have disco minge, and making monkey faces in the mirror, usually in that order. Texting my mom that I'm scared, come get me. Cocaine. Checking my wallet to make sure I have enough money. Playing Raid Shadow Legends and preparing to tell them about today's sponsor NordVPN. Attaching the extendo dick.
People who had to fight their bullies. How did it go? I was repeatedly picked on for over 5 years in grade school, name-calling, stealing my stuff, breaking my stuff, etc., and at the time I was the type of kid that always thought peer mediation and adults would help me solve the issue, but it never did, and the fact this one kid picked on me made others do it. One day the kid who always bullied me took my lunch and threw it around in the bag, and I had an extreme episode of anger. I rushed up to them, grabbed them by the throat and slammed them against the wall, then said, "If you F with me one more time I am going to hurt you." They just smiled at me and said, "Yeah, whatever." In return, because I had always told the teacher on them before. A few weeks later I was in line outside during lunch period, and he started calling my mom a whore and calling me the poor kid. And that was pretty much all it took. I immediately grabbed him by the back of his shirt, took his head into my hand, and I smashed it directly into the fence post. He dropped to the ground, held his eye, and started screeching like he was dying. I remember I was so enraged, but at the same time felt satisfaction. He was sobbing on the ground. The lunch aides came to his rescue, scolded me, and said I should have known better. Then proceeded to walk us through the entire lunchroom of 1st through 6th graders. It became so quiet all you could hear was his howling, and everyone was staring at him as he took the walk of utter shame. I was in school suspended for a week, he was sent to the literal hospital, and I was never picked on again by anyone. I felt bad for hurting him after it was all said and done. Bosses of Reddit, what's the craziest thing you've seen an employee do? I manage a small weld shop. Generally I don't care about clean background checks or pot, as long as you come into work every day and get shit done. Finding reliable welders is difficult, so a lot flies. This sometimes leads to weird employees. This one guy we hired just stopped showing up. After like 3 days, he walks in the door. He's bright red from sunburn and his clothes are torn to shreds. Dude was drinking on a little boat and somehow got lost at sea. He didn't have cell phone reception, so he wasn't able to call me. He took a bunch of pictures over the few days he was lost at sea, including one where he was being rescued by the Coast Guard. Coast Guard took him to the hospital, he checked himself out and then immediately came into work. Didn't even go home and shower. Dude. I gave him the rest of the week off.
What is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? There was a kid in another class at my school in 6th grade that was genius. I don't mean like, oh he's really smart cause doesn't need to do the homework and still gets full marks. Like he was doing advanced calculus with a local college professor after school. This kid was smarter than everyone. So one day our computer system for the entire school goes down. I was in a poorer area at the time, so this was normal. This has occurred many times, so normally it would affect us cause we barely used laptops and such. The only class that was affected was the computer class. This kid was in computer class. 3 or so hours later when I'm in class with him during social studies, 3 guys with FBI jackets on and our local chief escorted him out of the building. We were told nothing, the parents were told nothing. It never hit the news. To this day we have no clue what he did, except every single teacher I've asked about this says they were also told nothing. I haven't seen the kid since and I can't find a trace of him going to another school or ending up in trouble. He just fell off the face of the earth with his parents. I still think about that kid.
My crazy teacher tried to shove me in the army, so I broke the bureaucracy. First, a little bit of backstory. I study in Russia, where it is mandatory for most people to start army training after graduating high school. My school is a very respected one, to the point where it has been considered the best in the country. However, that doesn't stop us from having some dumbass teachers. One of those teachers is one who teaches something that can be translated as basic safety. In the 11th grade, last school year in Russia, it mostly consists of theory about the army, what we have to do, what we have to expect, and the sort. Mostly patriotic BS about unity and power. By law you're required to file certain documents when you hit 17 years of age, so the army knows who they're recruiting. So on the first lesson of the year he told the whole class to bring those papers by the next lesson or everyone will get a dicking. The issue with me was that this law applies only to citizens. I'm not one, I was born in Europe, I'm just here to study. I told him that after the lesson, and annoyed and threatened to fail me on every single lesson. Here's where the MC comes in, I brought the papers to the lesson after that. One thing you should know is that for non-citizens it's not only optional to serve in the army, but it is illegal. Our dumb teacher didn't know that, even though he served in the Navy for several decades. So on the weekend he turns in the documents to the higher level, oblivious to the time bomb that was there. Then on the lesson after that the principal came in, and took him out for a short talk. Turns out that shit had not only hit the fan, but the fan was spinning at Mach 9. Sadly, I don't know the true extent of the chaos I caused, but apparently my documents got intermixed with some kind of state secrets, and now everyone suddenly thought the NATO has struck. That teacher never dared to fail me since.
What comedian has never made you laugh? Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer. Anyone say Amy Schumer yet? Quite a lot. Still.
Hooked up with a friend consensually, but afterwards she said she didn't want to. This is a lot on me and I just don't know how to feel about it. I'm a guy by the way. I had sort of been seeing this girl for a while but we had decided to just be friends. Last week, we were texting about cuddling and she said she wished she could cuddle with someone that night. I offered to come over and she accepted. I did not have any intention of hooking up that night. After a few hours there, one thing led to another and we started making out and then hooked up. I asked before anything serious happened if she was okay with this and she said yes. We did it, and she seemed to really enjoy it. She was smiling the entire time. We didn't talk about it all the next morning, but a few days later she messaged me and said it made her uncomfortable because she did not want to hook up. She said that she froze up and just said yes and let it happen due to past traumas. I apologized and we talked some about that and she says she doesn't blame me and is not like accusing me of anything and still wants to remain friends, but I still feel deeply uncomfortable with myself after hearing that. If I had known this before I would have stopped and not done it with her at all unless I was positive she wanted it. I keep thinking back if maybe there were signs that I missed but I can't think of any. I just feel terrible about this. Which Mandela effect messed your head up the most? The Monopoly guy not having a monocle. C-3PO has one silver leg. Every costume gets this wrong. The fact that there is no record of Tinkerbell ever appearing in the beginning of Disney movies, drawing the logo, and dotting the I with her wand before flying off screen. 6 people in JFK car on the day he got assassinated. I still think it was 4. Fruit Loops. They were Fruit Loops when I was a kid. I swear. Okay, hear me out. First of all, in Brazil you typically don't go to school, middle school or high school, doesn't matter, for the whole day. You are in school either in the morning, usually 7:30 a.m. to noon, or in the afternoon, usually 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Every single person who was a kid in Brazil, and was not in school in the mornings, when 9/11 happened remembers watching Dragon Ball Z and having it be interrupted for the breaking news of the attacks. And I mean everyone. It comes up every time someone asks what were you doing when 9/11 happened. Except DBZ wasn't on at that time. Someone checked the airing times and compared to the time when the attacks happened. Definitely not on. Still, a whole generation of kids is 100% sure they were watching DBZ when the news.
Juicy gossip you just found out in your personal lives. My uncle told my parents that he needed money because he borrowed from the Chinese mafia and they were threatening to kill him and his family or something. My parents sent him some money and then 2 weeks later he posted a pic with a new car. My barber got 2 different girls pregnant, neither of whom are his girlfriend. Prices have went up a little bit but the phone calls I overhear are worth it. Some girl in our year at school posted on Facebook the other day how her boyfriend had supposedly cheated on her. They had a full-blown argument in the comments just on Facebook for everyone to see. Yesterday she posted a picture of some keys tagging her boyfriend in it saying just bought our first house together. I just found out that one of my work colleagues who just returned from a 2-week expensive holiday with his wife in Iceland has just found out his wife has run up about £50,000 debt on numerous credit cards. One of the girls in our group of friends has never really gotten over her ex that left her 3 years ago. She will often bring him up when drunk and it has really hampered her dating life. He lives thousands of miles away, and today he posted a picture of him sitting with an attractive dude getting coffee. They are holding hands and their legs are touching. We were all sitting around the TV hanging out when she saw the picture. Shell shock is the best description for her face. I was told that my great-grandfather kept the family farm in business by blatant and repeated acts of insurance fraud. My neighbor's cousin broke into her house and stole 37 guns. Also, I learned my neighbor owned at least 37 guns.
What is the saddest TV show death of all time? Fry's dog Futurama. Breaking Bad when they murder Jesse's GF while he's tied up in the car watching. Poussey. Had to find someone who was caught up in the show to talk about it. I couldn't sit alone with that death. Glenn in The Walking Dead. F me. Stopped watching the show after that. The jerk for asking my friend to move a picture of him and his wife because it made my wife uncomfortable? Me, male 32, and my wife, Dahlia, female 28, lost our apartment 2 months ago and moved in with mom temporarily. Issues began to arise between Dahlia and mom and I had to ask my friend, Anthony, male 31, to let us move until I get enough money to rent out. His wife was away visiting family and he agreed, but even there, some issues started to arise. Dahlia is very shy around Anthony. She grew up in conservative home and so it's understandable. But sometimes it can be a bit much, I admit that. For example, she freaked out when she accidentally drank from his glass. She also once made a fuss when he passed by the guest's room when she was lying down and the door was open. Thankfully, Anthony was super understanding and we were able to talk some of these issues out. Last night, Dahlia was passing the hall and noticed a framed picture of Anthony and his wife kissing hanging on the wall. She told me about it and said it made her uncomfortable. She asked if I could speak to Anthony about it, but he didn't take it well. He gave me a look when I spoke to him and said this was bonkers because first of all, his wife put it there, and second of all, the picture holds sentimental meaning to him and his wife, and argued that it wasn't some explicit picture of them, just a normal wedding kiss.
What's the most messed up thing someone has told you about themselves after barely getting to know them? Chatted with a huge middle-aged dude in a bar once, who after about 2 minutes told me that he had been in prison for bashing his dad's head in with a hammer. His dad used to beat his mom, and one day, he'd had enough of it. Visit at a coffee shop for the first time on holiday. Barista commented on my tattoos. I said thank you. She told me she's not allowed to get tattoos, but she cuts herself to enjoy the pain, and that's nearly the same thing. I found a different coffee shop for the rest of the holiday. Temporary coworker tells me she was kidnapped, RIPED, and beaten by her ex-husband, burned with cigarettes, hands shoved in the garbage disposal, head beaten with a hammer. The incident resulted in the baby she somehow still has. And they're not even divorced because he wants on the divorce paper. I work in a small-town gas station. I'm trying to check out customers, and she's reciting a true crime episode to me. The conversation started with mascara recommendations. It was the craziest thing I've ever heard. Moved to a neighborhood not too long ago. First person I met was an older woman in her 50s. She told me all about her drug use and how sometimes she ends up outside naked, and asked if I would help her back inside and put clothes on her. This was all in 5 minutes of saying hello.
The most effed up true story you know. When I was in high school I dated this girl, Carolyn. Her previous boyfriend Jamie was involved in a pretty shitty story. He and I already knew of each other and had talked a few times. He had these 2 other friends who were kinda bad news. Also, there was this girl, Melanie Ritchie, who went to the crosstown high school. She was super popular, everyone loved her. She was maybe a sophomore. She was a really good girl too, like always doing the right thing, polite and all that. One night, Melanie decides to sneak out of her house and go to a party. Jamie and his 2 friends were at this party. One of the friends decided he was going to hook up with Melanie. He spent most of the night following her around to get her drunk. She was really resistant to it at first but eventually gave in to the peer pressure. He had been feeding her some kind of DRGS too, either X or L. But that supposedly was fake. She ended up getting pretty sloshed and he gave her something else and they all left together. She and this dude were in the back seat when she passed out. The dude was not all with it and strongly concerned Melanie was dead. They had no idea what to do with her, so they drive out in the woods. Dude decides he's getting laid anyhow and has sex with her on the hood of the car. They still believe she's dead at this point and aren't about to visit the authorities. The second guy, not Jamie, has a brilliant idea. We'll drag her down into this ravine, put a pipe bomb in her mouth to destroy the dental records and just leave her out here in the middle of nowhere. They do that.
If the CIA asked you to create a playlist to torture prisoners, what songs would you include on it? The One Guy's CEX playlist. What does the fox say? Obviously. Baby Shark song for 1 hour, of auto-tuned poorly. One playthrough of this is the song that never ends. Start again with Baby Shark song. K-pop. Just a bunch of K-pop. Baby Justin Bieber. Gangnam Style. Make them watch and listen to Shopee adverts. Try it on YouTube, I dare you. All I Want for Christmas Is You, Mariah Carey. Easy Street.